They say they love you, but why do you still feel empty? You're lying in their arms, their lips whispering I love you, but your soul feels miles away. You're not crazy, you're just beginning to wake up. Keep watching. The truth isn't always pretty, but it will set you free. Have you ever laid next to someone and still felt completely alone? It's confusing, isn't it? We live in a world where desire often wears the mask of love, where one passionate night, one romantic message, one lingering gaze, can leave you wondering, was that love? Or just lust in disguise? Let's be honest, desire is loud, it's urgent, it wants you, now, but love? Love is quiet, it lingers, it stays. When the silence comes, Carl Jung once said, love is not just a feeling of pleasure. It is a meeting of two souls, where nothing is hidden. Let that sink in for a moment. Two souls, nothing hidden, no masks, no performances, no need to be more lovable than you already are. But here's the problem, we've all been taught to chase connection, but never how to recognize real love. We long to be seen, but we settle for being touched. We want to be known, but often end up being used, and in the process, we mistake intensity for intimacy. So today, I'm inviting you into a deeper conversation, a braver one that doesn't give you a checklist and doesn't sell you a fairy tale. Instead, it asks the question beneath the noise, backhand index pointing right, is this love, or is this just someone trying to fill their own emptiness with your presence? This video isn't about big gestures or poetic words, it's about quiet moments, the kind of truth that lives in stillness, in the pauses, in the eyes that linger just a little longer, in the space after intimacy, when everything else falls away. So before we begin, ask yourself one question: if pleasure, comfort, and excitement disappeared, would they still choose you? Because real love doesn't crave your body. It sees your soul, and it stays. Are you ready to see love clearly? Even if it hurts a little. If yes, then let's begin. Challenge accepted. If you have to perform to be loved, then it was never love to begin with. Sit with that for a moment, because what if the very instant you stop trying to impress is when you finally discover who's truly meant to stay? Have you ever caught yourself rehearsing texts before you hit send, standing in front of the mirror, wondering if this outfit makes you look fun enough or wanted enough? Maybe you've laughed at jokes that weren't funny, agreed with things you didn't believe in, just to feel chosen. If that feels familiar, pause, because here's a truth we're not told enough: love should never feel like an audition. When love is real, deep, grounded, and safe, you stop performing, you stop twisting yourself into someone more likable, more interesting, more lovable. Because the right person, they don't need you to become anyone. They love who you already are, not just the filtered parts, not just the version of you that smiles on cue, but even the pieces you've kept in the dark, the awkward quirks, the irrational fears, the parts you call too much. And not only do they tolerate those things, they want to know them. They stay when those parts show up. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt completely safe to just be, without shrinking, without editing, without hiding? Real love feels like home, not a stage. There's no script, no spotlight, no role to play, just two people showing up, raw, honest, unfiltered. And in that space, you soften, you breathe, you exhale, because finally, you're not carrying the weight of proving you're worth loving. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can you become that person if you're constantly performing for love? How can you feel free if you're always managing perception, guarding rejection, hiding your truth? That's why this freedom to be fully, unapologetically you is the first and most telling sign of real love. You don't feel like you've earned it, you feel like you've returned to it, because they've seen you. And they stay after the makeup comes off, after the laughter fades, after the vulnerability spills out in shaky words you thought might push them away, and when they stay, not out of duty, not out of fear, but out of quiet reverence for your realness. That's not performance. That's not desire. That's love. So the next time you wonder, is this love? Ask yourself this, am I still performing? Because when it's real, you don't have to prove you belong, you just do. Here's a hard truth. Desire wants to use you, love wants to care for you. One pushes to get what it wants, the other pauses, and quietly asks, are you okay? So if you've ever wondered, do they love me? Or do they just want me? This might give you the answer. Let's be honest, we live in a world where most people are chasing something: validation, attention, quick pleasure, and in the rush of it all, love gets mistaken for longing, because real love is slow, it's quiet, it's not driven by the hunger to get, but by the willingness to give. When someone truly loves you, they don't make themselves the center of the story. They make room for you, for your breath, for your softness, for your pace. They don't rush you when you're anxious. They don't push you when you hesitate. They ask, are you okay? And they mean it, not out of politeness, but because your well-being genuinely matters to them. They slow down, they wait without pressure, because love isn't impatient, desire is loud, it's focused on the outcome, it wants now. It wants more. It wants you, but not always all of you. Desire doesn't listen, it moves fast, it skips the parts of you that require stillness, presence, time. But love listens, love adjusts, love remembers. Have you ever had someone remember the way you take your coffee? The name of the song that makes you cry, or that you get overwhelmed in loud places? These aren't grand gestures. They're sacred signs that you're not being used to fill a void, but truly seen as a whole human being, not a fantasy, not a role, not a reward. Carl Jung once wrote, where love rules, there is no will to power. Real love doesn't dominate, it doesn't control or manipulate, it doesn't ask you to shrink so someone else can shine, it doesn't silence your voice, it doesn't override your needs just to preserve their comfort. Real love invites you to take up space, to exist fully, without fear. So let me ask you, do they make room for your joy? Your softness, your rest? Do they care if you feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally? Because when someone prioritizes your comfort, not as strategy, not as performance, but as instinct, that's not desire, that's not charm, that's not game, that is love. And the thing about that kind of love, you can't fake it, you can't rush it, you don't find it by performing, chasing, or begging to be chosen. You feel it when someone chooses your peace over their craving, when someone waits instead of pushing, when they see you as a soul, not a conquest. So the next time you wonder, is this love? Ask instead, do I feel safe to slow down here? Or am I being hurried through a performance? Because when it's real, you don't have to earn your place, you already belong. If someone needs you to keep talking just so they feel secure, that's not love, that's control. Real love, it hears you even when you go quiet, and sometimes, the ones who sit in silence beside you, love you the loudest. Have you ever sat next to someone, and felt completely seen, without saying a single word? That's rare, because most people fill silence like it's a threat, like a void that needs to be patched with noise. They talk to avoid discomfort, to keep the connection alive through sound, to prove that something is happening. But real love knows, some of the most powerful things we feel can't be said out loud, they're too sacred, too raw, too real. When someone truly loves you, they listen not just to your words, but to your pauses. They notice the tremble in your breath, the glance you avoid, the quiet weight of something you haven't named yet. They don't push you to speak, just to calm their own anxiety. They don't ask, "What's wrong?" 5 times in a row, because they can't handle your stillness. Instead, they sit, they stay, and they let silence be what it is: honest desire. Struggles with silence. It needs stimulation, it wants validation, it feeds on response. So when silence enters the room, desire gets restless. It wants you to talk, to smile, to perform. It needs you to prove that it still has your attention. But love waits, love listens, love stays. Carl Jung once described this kind of bond as emerging between self and other, a connection that goes beyond language, beyond logic, into something deeper. A spiritual resonance. In that kind of space, you're not being decoded, you're not being fixed, you're simply held. So ask yourself, who in your life can sit with your silence, without trying to fix it? Who makes it feel safe to not have the answers? Who allows you to just breathe and still feel completely received? That's not chemistry, that's not charm, that's emotional attunement, a soul-level recognition that says, you don't have to speak for me to feel you. The ability to hold someone's silence isn't something you find in a dating profile. It's not a bullet point on a love language quiz. It's a quiet instinct, a deep reverence for the parts of you that are still unfolding, the places you haven't fully put into words. And here's what most people miss: real love never asks you to explain yourself before you're ready. It never makes your stillness feel like a problem that needs to be solved. So if someone can sit beside you, in your quiet, in your overwhelm, in your unspoken truth, and still choose to stay, that's not just love. That's someone who sees you beneath the surface. And that kind of love, it doesn't fade, it doesn't demand, it doesn't fear silence, it honors it. Because some people listen to your words, but the right one, they listen to your silence. And when someone holds that silence, like it's sacred, that's not noise, that's understanding. And that is love, at its most honest, and its most healing. A man can touch your body, and still never see your soul. But the one who dares to hold your gaze, especially after you've let your walls down, that man isn't chasing pleasure. He's choosing presence. We often confuse attention with intimacy, desire with depth, a touch with being truly seen. But here's the truth: the body is easy to reach. The soul, that takes courage. The ones who only want pleasure, they move quickly, they touch what's on the surface. They never ask to stay long enough to meet what lies underneath. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. But maybe they're even more than that. The eyes don't just show what's inside us, they reveal what someone sees in us. And sometimes, what they see changes everything. There's a kind of gaze that goes skin deep, fast, hungry, searching for thrill. It scans your body, not your soul. It's fueled by need, by hunger. And while it might feel flattering in the moment, it rarely leaves you feeling safe afterward. Because that kind of gaze, it consumes. It wants something from you, not something with you. It doesn't pause long enough to witness the storm behind your smile. It doesn't linger long enough to notice the tremble in your truth. But then, there's another kind of gaze. One that doesn't sharpen, it softens. It doesn't devour, it doesn't rush, it simply sees you. And in that moment, you stop shrinking, you stop performing, you stop wondering, what do I need to be? Because finally, you feel seen. You'll know it in the quietest moments, after a kiss, after you've let your guard down, maybe even after making love. Does he open his eyes and stay with you? Does he hold your gaze, gently, openly, without flinching? Or does he turn away, nervous, detached, suddenly distant? because the man driven by desire often can't hold your eyes after intimacy, not because he's shy, but because eye contact becomes too real, too raw, too revealing. But the man who loves you, he meets your gaze and stays there, not to possess you, not to perform, but to be with you. He doesn't look away when your eyes speak of pain. He doesn't flinch when your past flickers across your expression. He stays, not because you're perfect, but because he's not afraid of your imperfection. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And maybe that's the secret. The ones who can truly look into your eyes, after the masks are gone, after the performance fades, are the ones who have already done that inner work themselves. They're not looking for a fantasy. They're not searching for a mirror. They're present enough to witness you. So ask yourself, does his gaze make you feel watched or understood? Do you feel examined or embraced? Does he look at you like someone trying to figure you out, or someone finally seeing you clearly? Because the gaze of love is never about inspection. It's an invitation to be seen fully, without fear. It's not the kiss that tells you it's love. It's the gaze that follows after. If he keeps his eyes open, not just literally, but emotionally, if he sees your pain and doesn't look away, if he meets your vulnerability and stays, that's not lust, that's not a performance. That is a man brave enough to love all of you, especially the parts you thought no one could hold. The way someone treats you after sex reveals more than anything they say before it. Let that sink in, because that moment, right after the high, is when truth has no place left to hide. There's a moment, quiet, subtle, often overlooked. It comes after the thrill, after the kiss fades, after the sheets settle, after your body has opened, and your soul has softened. And in that moment, does he stay, or does he start to disappear? Does he lean in, or turn away? Does the silence feel safe, or does it feel like he already left? That moment might be the most honest of all, because it reveals something that words, and even passion, can't hide. It shows you, was he here for connection, or just for climax? Because desire, it peaks fast, and when it's satisfied, it often vanishes just as quickly. But love lingers. When a man truly loves you, he stays, not out of guilt, not because he thinks he's supposed to. He stays because something in him longs to be close, not just to your body, but to your being. You feel it in his stillness beside you, in the way he tucks a strand of hair behind your ear, instead of reaching for his phone. In the way he wraps himself around you, not to claim you, but to choose presence over escape. But when it's just desire, the energy shifts fast. You might feel him pull away, emotionally, physically. He might grab his phone, check out, roll over, pretend to fall asleep. He disappears into a different world, while your body's still warm, still open, suddenly cold. And here's the thing, your body feels it, long before your mind can explain it. There's actually a biological truth here. Lust runs on dopamine, a high-intensity, short-lived chemical surge. And when the dopamine drops, so does the attention, the tenderness, the connection. That's why post-intimacy can feel like emotional whiplash. But love is fueled by oxytocin and vasopressin, the hormones of bonding, safety, and stillness. They don't crash, they connect. Carl Jung called this post-intimate space the withdrawal of the ego. It's when the masks fall, the roles dissolve, the performance ends, and what's left is presence, raw, unfiltered, real, no pretending, no posturing, just being. Here's something most people don't tell you. If you feel emotionally cold after being physically close, your body might be trying to tell you a truth your heart doesn't want to hear, because true connection doesn't end when the climax ends. It begins in what follows. Jung once said, loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. So ask yourself, can you feel him beside you after everything is said and done? Or does the silence feel like a wall instead of warmth? Does his stillness hold you or push you out? When a man stays, when he's still there in the stillness, holding your body like it's sacred, resting beside you like your home, that's not desire, that's devotion. Because love doesn't leave you shivering after the warmth fades. It stays in the quiet, in the breath between words, in the softness after the flame. It stays, not to impress you, not to prove anything, but simply to be with you. So the next time you wonder if it's real, don't just look at how he touches you, look at who he becomes. Once the touching ends, you know it's real. When you don't have to explain yourself, and they still understand. No words, no effort, just alignment, and suddenly, you're not walking beside a stranger anymore, you're dancing with someone your soul already remembers. Have you ever been with someone, and without a single word, you both just knew what the other was feeling? You reached for the glass, he handed it to you before you asked. You turned to speak, he was already looking at you, waiting. Your steps matched without planning. Your breath found the same rhythm. That's not random, that's not chemistry, that's unconscious synchrony. And it might be one of the most powerful signs that love has arrived. There's actually a word for this in neuroscience, limbic resonance. It's what happens when two nervous systems, two emotional landscapes, start syncing, like two tuning forks vibrating in harmony. No effort, no calculation, just resonance. And here's the beauty of it. You don't have to manage it, you don't have to perform, prove, or pretend. When someone truly loves you, this synchrony flows on its own. Their gestures, their tone, their way of pausing when you pause, it all begins to mirror you, not out of mimicry, but out of attunement. You feel emotionally seen, even in silence. You feel physically safe, even in stillness. It's like two souls dancing to music, only they can hear. And you don't have to lead, you don't have to follow, you just move together. But when it's not love, when it's just desire, especially the kind that's transactional or surface level, you'll feel it. The kisses feel technical, the touch, rehearsed, the timing, always a little off. You may smile, but there's a quiet tension underneath it all, a subtle ache, a whisper in your body saying, this isn't quite right. Because you're being interacted with, not felt. Carl Jung once described this kind of connection as the reunion of archetypal energies, a memory the soul carries. He called it the sacred couple. Not just two bodies meeting, but two energies reuniting, two inner lives resonating across lifetimes. You don't force this, you don't chase it, you simply recognize it. When it arrives, and when it is real, you'll notice it in the smallest things. The way he slows his pace when you're tired, without you asking. The way he senses your anxiety before you've spoken a word. The way his laughter lands, in perfect rhythm with yours. This isn't chemistry, it's coherence. It's nervous systems saying, you're safe here. None of this can be staged. It's not something learned in a book. It can't be scripted into a dating profile, because unconscious synchrony isn't effort. It's essence. It's what happens when love isn't just a feeling, but a frequency, when it's not performance, but presence. So let me ask you, have you ever looked up, and they were already reaching toward you? Have you ever felt in sync, without trying to be? Have you ever sat beside someone in silence, and felt more understood than with 1,000 words? If so, maybe, just maybe, you've met someone who isn't trying to keep up with you. They're already walking in rhythm with your soul. Real love doesn't move to impress you. It moves with you, without needing direction. So the next time your steps match, your pauses echo, and your silence feels like music. Don't overthink it, don't explain it away, just breathe, and know, your soul may have just found its mirror. If someone is rushing to have you, it might not be love. Real love moves slowly, not because it's unsure, but because it respects the one place you need to feel safe the most, your heart. So let me ask you, are you mistaking desire for love? There's something quietly powerful about a person who doesn't rush love, someone who isn't trying to possess you too soon, someone who isn't racing to close the deal, like love is a transaction to secure. They move slowly, deliberately, with presence. That kind of slowness isn't hesitation, it isn't weakness. It's not because they don't know what they want, but because they do. And they know what they're seeking isn't surface level chemistry, it's something deeper, soul-level connection, and they understand that can't be rushed. Have you ever been with someone who made you feel like love was a race, like you were being cornered, pressured, accelerated into closeness you weren't ready for? It might have felt flattering at first, intense, magnetic, like passion, but look again, what we often label as passion is sometimes just urgency, fueled by insecurity, or a hunger for control. People driven by lust often try to fast-forward intimacy. They skip the slow conversations, they avoid silence, they bypass the unfolding of who you truly are. They want the closeness, without the work of building trust. And when you pause, they push. When you hesitate, they guilt you. When you need time, they call you distant, cold, too cautious. But love, real love, doesn't do that. When someone truly loves you, they honor your pace. They hold space for your pauses, your fears, even your silence. They stop when you hesitate. They don't push you past your boundaries, or make you feel like you're ruining the moment by being careful, because they understand your yes must come from safety, not pressure. This kind of slowness is not a lack of interest, it's not the absence of passion, it's not emotional immaturity, it's not passivity, it's devotion. It says, you are worth waiting for. And the irony, that kind of slow, steady love often creates the deepest passion of all, because safety is the soil where intimacy blooms. And when someone makes you feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, that's when real connection awakens. That's when your heart begins to trust. That's when your body stops bracing. That's when your soul starts to open, not because you were persuaded, not because you were seduced, not because you gave in, but because you were seen, respected, and never rushed. So if you're with someone who moves slowly, who listens more than they reach, who pauses more than they push, that might not be a lack of intensity, that might just be the most passionate kind of love there is, the kind that heals, the kind that lasts, the kind that, in time, sets you free, because the one who truly loves you will enter, not break in, and that, more than words, more than gestures, more than fireworks, that is how you know this love is worth keeping. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you forgot yourself in the process? What if the real heartbreak wasn't them walking away, but you abandoning your own soul just to feel loved? This isn't just about love, it's about waking up. There's no shame in loving the wrong person. Let me say that again. There is no shame in giving your heart to someone who didn't know how to hold it. We've all done it, not because we're weak, not because we're naive, but because, somewhere along the way, we silenced our inner voice, we ignored our intuition, we doubted our worth, we abandoned ourselves, in the name of being chosen, and we did it in subtle ways. We became experts at pleasing, we performed versions of ourselves we thought would be easier to love, we laughed when we wanted to cry, we agreed when we wanted to scream, we made ourselves smaller, just to fit into someone else's version of love. But here's the truth, you don't need to shrink to be loved. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And that quote hits differently when you're trying to heal, because it forces you to ask, am I living in alignment with who I truly am, or am I still performing for love? That's where the real awakening begins, not in blaming others for our heartbreak, but in turning inward and asking the harder questions. Who have I been attracting? What pain have I been tolerating? And most of all, what parts of myself have I been willing to abandon, just to not be abandoned? Somewhere, we were told we needed someone else to complete us, that we were just one half, waiting to be found. But it's not true. You were never half of anything. You are already whole, already enough. You don't need love to prove your worth. You are not something waiting to be earned. You are something waiting to be remembered. And when you begin to live from that place of inner wholeness, everything changes. You stop choosing people who mirror your wounds. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You stop chasing those who make you question your worth. Because now, you know what real love feels like. Real love doesn't feel like a test. You're always failing. It doesn't leave you waiting for a reply, starving for clarity, wondering if you're too much or not enough. Real love is not proven through promises. It is present, steady, clear. It reflects the light that's already in you, not the one you need to perform to receive. So maybe the final lesson of love isn't about finding the one. Maybe it's about becoming the person who no longer abandons themselves in the name of being loved. That kind of awakening, that's not an ending. That's the beginning of everything. Because the moment you stop needing love to prove your worth is the moment you become magnetic to the love you truly deserve. And when you finally come home to yourself, your true self, you stop chasing love, and start being it. Real love doesn't feel like a thunderstorm. It feels like remembering who you are, in the presence of someone who never asked you to change. What if love isn't something you find, but something your soul recognizes? Real love isn't some grand, cinematic twist of fate. It doesn't arrive with fireworks, no spotlight, no soundtrack. It doesn't sweep in with chaos or demand. Real love is ancient, quiet, timeless. It's a deep recognition, a silent knowing, a resonance between two souls who have met before, maybe not in this life, but somewhere deeper. It's not about finally being enough. It's not about earning love. It's about being seen, just as you are. But here's the part no one tells you. You can't access this kind of love if you're not fully present in your own body. You can't feel deep connection when you're stuck in your head, overthinking, protecting, preparing for the worst. Because here's the truth, your mind can lie to you. It can justify red flags. It can convince you to stay in places that quietly starve your soul. But your body always knows. That tightening in your chest, that pit in your stomach, that calm, grounded ease, when someone just stands beside you, without needing anything from you, those are messages. Your nervous system speaks truth before your brain can even name it. Your body doesn't negotiate, it doesn't rationalize, it simply feels. So if something feels grounding, honest, even if it's not exciting or intense, listen. If something feels rushed, foggy, performative, listen. Because while the mind is loud, the body is honest. And when it feels safe, not just physically, but emotionally, that's when love is real. And maybe that's the deepest wisdom of all. Love, true love, isn't something you chase. It's something you become available to. The moment you come back home to yourself, when you stop performing, when you stop pleasing, when you start listening to your own signals, your own longings, your own rhythm, that's when you stop settling for what your ego wants and start aligning with what your heart truly needs. This isn't surface-level love. This isn't about butterflies or adrenaline. It's about recognition, the moment one soul lives in truth, and the other sees it. Real love doesn't ask you to become someone else. It meets you where you are, and stays. So if something inside you stirred while watching this video, don't ignore it. That is awakening. That's your body remembering what your mind forgot. That's your nervous system whispering, this feels like home. So breathe, take your time, no need to chase. You're not here by accident. You're here because your soul is ready to feel something deeper, more honest, more whole. And if you felt that shift, even just a little, stay with it, because this space, this conversation, it's not about finding the one, it's about returning to the one you've always been. If this stirred something in you, don't let it fade, because the moment you start listening to your body is the moment you stop mistaking noise for love. Come home to yourself, come walk with us. Your soul's been waiting, and now you're ready.